Welcome to EV-olution, my channel about electric cars from a different perspective. My name is Andre Lawrence, and I'm here with the Hyundai Ioniq 7, as well as the Hyundai Ioniq 6. And if you want to know more about them, stick around, I'll show you in 10 seconds. The Ioniq 7 is Hyundai's response to the Kia EV9 electric SUV that will be coming out a little bit later this year. Now you can see spy shots of the electric EV9 all over the web because it's in pre-production form, but this is definitely a concept vehicle. Now one of the things you'll notice here is this really cool glass rear. One of the things that I don't call this rear is a hatch because guess what? There's no button. So basically this is a really cool design feature that shows a lot of the design aesthetics of the interior, but it's definitely not something that'll make it into the production version. Another thing that I noticed is much like with the Prophecy, which was the concept vehicle for the Ioniq 6, the rear of this has these pixels that go all the way around, and much like with the Prophecy, they're just open pixel plastic cube things, so you couldn't drive that in normal conditions because without a cover on them, they would get packed full of dirt and crud and you could never clean them out. There were a couple things that I noticed on the sides of the vehicle. Now, when I talk about sides, I do mean both because most of the press photos and most of the stuff that you see show this side that's right here behind me. And as you can tell, you've got the rear door, which opens rearwards. It's a suicide door. And then you've got the front door that opens normally, and those open with a key fob, and there are no door handles on this. Now, obviously, that's not going to be a production feature, but what I did notice is what's missing on the other side. You'll notice that there's no line going down the rear quarter panel for the rear door. Well, that's because there is none. Now, Hyundai opted to create a very open and living room type of space inside, meaning that there is a seat that goes across this side or furniture or whatever it is. And that means that they couldn't put a door on this side. So once again, that's definitely not something that's going to make it into production version. Now, something that I thought was very interesting that I hope makes it into production is the wheels. Now the first thing that you'll notice is the enormous size. Now there are no markings on the sidewall of these tires, meaning that they're concept tires designed for this particular vehicle. I have no idea what size they are, but I'm taking a wild guess that these wheels are at least 24 inch. They are enormous. A feature that was built into them that I think is very cool is the way they've reduced wind turbulence from the openings in these wheels. If you have a look up close, you'll notice that there's these little plastic fins that are black to camouflage them on the inside. So you get the look of a 5-spoke open wheel, but you get the aerodynamics of a wheel that's more closed in. I thought that was pretty cool. I know that the Ioniq 7 SUV is definitely a concept vehicle, especially with all of these far-out design features that they've got built into them. But something that I thought was very interesting is that if you look at the front, there's essentially nothing but this pixel design. What's missing is there's no charge port like on the Kona. I went and looked at the back, like on the Ioniq 5 or on the Ioniq Electric original vehicle, and on the sides, and there's no charge port either. That was just something that's a little bit weird, but I guess they put it under the hood for aesthetic purposes. That's another little design thing that I thought was interesting on this concept vehicle. One of the bits of information that I could not find on Google very quickly doing a search for the Ioniq 7 concept was the wheelbase. So I pulled out my trusty tape measure and I've got a 3.24 meter wheelbase measurement center hub to center hub. So that means that this vehicle should have a ton of interior space, even in a 3-row, 7-seater arrangement. So I'm looking forward to seeing the final, or at least the pre-production version. Now with that being said, this is a concept vehicle that has a little sign that says "Ne pas toucher," do not touch. And that means that there's unfortunately no way for me to have access to the interior. So with that being said, let's go have a look at the Ioniq 6. Unlike the Ioniq 7 concept that we just had a look at, this Ioniq 6 is actually a pre-production vehicle. That means that it's as close as it's going to get to the final version for deliveries as we're going to see at this moment in time. Now, unfortunately, unlike September 2021, where I was given access to the pre-production Ioniq 5, I actually got to sit and film the interior and go over some of the design features inside the vehicle as well. There's no key for this vehicle, so I can't get in. But I did notice a few things that I thought were fairly interesting, and I'm going to give you a little bit of perspective on what those are. If you've seen the Ioniq 5, or if you've watched my preview video of the vehicle from September 2021, and I'll have a link for that up here on the screen, you'll have seen the panoramic glass roof in the top trim. Now that panoramic roof is not something that opens, and it's got sunshades on the inside that close, unlike a Tesla vehicle. Now that's something that's different on this, and what's really interesting is that this sunroof right here will open up, and it looks to be the part that was taken directly from the Kia EV6. Now I've got a Kia EV6 and my glass panel roof looks identical to that. Now I'm going to be taking some measurements, but one thing you'll notice, you've got the windshield and then you've got this glass portion right here, which is exactly the same as in the EV6. And then you've got the glass panel that goes from here back to here, and it will pop up with the press of a button, and it'll also slide back completely to open up. Now that is something that I thought was pretty interesting. It allows for cost savings by reusing parts that Kia used in the EV6 to keep the price of the vehicle a bit lower. This pre-production Hyundai Ioniq 6 has 20-inch wheels just like on my Kia EV6, but I noticed a difference, and it has nothing to do with this nice design that you have here. It's actually the tire size. And you'll notice that these are 245/40/20s, where the EV6 has 255/45/20. That means that the EV6 tire is a little bit wider and a little bit thicker. So I'm just curious as to how the Ioniq 6 is going to ride on our pothole-filled roads here in the province of Quebec. So I'm looking forward to a test drive to find out. If you've been following my channel since 2019, then you'll know something that's important for me is the charge port location on an electric car. Now, my first EV was a e-niro EV. My wife has a Soul EV, and both of those vehicles have the charge port in front. And I think that's a bad idea, and I'll put a picture of why up here on the screen. It just doesn't work when you have snow and ice in your environment. Now, on the EV6, there is an improvement where they put it on the rear in the corner right about there. And that's pretty good because it's not in the front where it gets jam-packed, but it can still get, wind swirling up and blowing crap on it. Well, that's something that was fixed on this vehicle, is to have it on the rear quarter. Now, having it here on the rear quarter means that there's no way for this thing to get packed with ice unless there's an ice storm. And to me, that just makes sense. As you probably know, the Kia EV6 and the Hyundai Ioniq 5 are both hatchbacks, but the Ioniq 6 is a sedan. Just like the Model 3, this has a trunk or a boot, and the lid goes from down here all the way to up here. And I'm curious to find out if this vehicle has the same design flaw as the Model 3, where if this is covered in water, when you open it up, does the rain gutter catch the water, or does all the water get dumped into your trunk? Now, speaking of opening the trunk, you might want to know that to open this, the button is right here. Little camera that you got here for backing up is right beside it. And unfortunately, there's no way to wash this remotely. It's just a camera with no little squirt thingy in the back. There's a detail on the Ioniq 6 that I noticed that is very similar to the EV6, but is different in a way that I think may impact its functionality in the winter. And that has to do with these active air flaps. Now on the EV6, the active air flaps are actually hidden behind a sort of a grill-like structure. That means that most of the snow and the ice and anything that might accumulate in the winter is mostly not on the flaps. Now these flaps are right out here in the open. Now what does that mean if this gets covered in ice? Is that going to prevent them from opening? Well, I guess we'll find out when people start getting them, but it's something that I'd be a little concerned about. Another detail that I think is important, and I wish that Kia and Hyundai would address, is this front radar. Now the EV6, the Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6, basically any EV with the radar in the front has this little black plastic thing with the radar behind it, and in the winter when snow and ice and slush get kicked up on it, it prevents many of the features and safety functions from working. I wish they would put a little heating element so that when you pressed a defrost button or put it on the windshield defrost, that would actually melt what's on the front of this. Hyundai, I hope you're listening. It's something that I wish you would implement. Did you know that at the end of all of my videos I have bloopers and outtakes of basically me making a fool of myself? Well, if you watch the entire video for context, they can be kind of funny, so you might want to check them out at the end. If you like this video, please click on that thumbs up button because it tells the YouTube algorithm that this video is worth sharing, meaning that more people may subscribe to my channel. Now, speaking of subscriptions, if you click on that subscribe button, I would really appreciate it because I have a 15,000 subscriber goal. It is a personal goal. And if you can click on that and help me get there, that'd be greatly appreciated. If you click on the notification bell, you'll also be notified when I make my videos because I have absolutely no posting schedule whatsoever. I hope you enjoyed this preview of the Ioniq 6 and Ioniq 7 at the Montreal Auto Show. Hopefully Hyundai Canada will have a press vehicle of the Ioniq 6 available shortly, and I'll be able to have a full review of the car. Now with that being said, thanks for taking the time to watch my video. My name is Andre Lawrence. This is my channel about electric cars from a different perspective. Nice. There's no button to open this hatch. It's not a hatch. Essentially, this is just a really cool glass roof. The Ioniq 7 from Hyundai is The Ioniq 7, that's hard to say, which are essentially pixel lights, like on all of Hyundai's Ioniq line. Frack! And that has to do with the very interesting interior design that they've created by putting a more of a, wow, what a piece of crap, man. Now these are definitely concept wheels. There are a few things that notice, son of a schlitz. Now unfortunately, unlike in 2020, frack. The Ioniq 5, which I got full access to in September of 2021. Voyons, j'ai donc bien de la misère à parler. This Ioniq 6 is actually a pre-production vehicle. That means that's it. Nice. And I'm just really curious about the ride comfort with these tires being thinner on our very hazard are going to ride versus the suspension that's on the vehicle on the Quebec pot-fill son of a. This pre-production Ioniq 6 has 20-inch wheels on it, just like on my EV6 20-inch wheels. Voyons, tabarnak, j'ai de la misère. I would really appreciate it because it would help me get to my subscribe level of 15,000. That is a personal goal, it is.